Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, fight of the year. Is Errol Spence still fighting Keith Thurman? What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Cardinal Red Sports. Let's talk about it. All right, y'all. So, Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, I believe, will be fight of the year. But the fight I don't think will be fight of the year is Errol Spence versus Keith one-time Thurman. I feel like Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia have started a new trend within the sport, which is superstars fighting superstars. I think that you're going to start to see more fighters, shrug their shoulders at the A-side situation when it comes to making fights. Now, I'm not saying that Gervonta Davis shouldn't want to be the A-side, because he is, but I think more fighters who feel like they are the A-side when they're actually the B-side are going to start, for lack of a better word, just signing the contract and making the fights, because I think the Errol Spence Terence Crawford situation, it just rubbed everybody the wrong way. And now you got a situation to where Errol Spence, what is going on with Errol Spence, man? Is Errol Spence actually going to fight Keith Thurman, or was that just a lot of hype talk to get fans to stop talking about the Terence Crawford situation? Now, an article recently came out, and it was insinuating that Errol Spence only brought Keith Thurman's name up because there was so much talk surrounding Terence Crawford and whether Errol Spence and Terence Crawford were going to actually fight. And basically the person who wrote the article was suggesting that Errol Spence has no intentions of fighting Terence Crawford whatsoever. That it's not Terence Crawford who's ducking, that it's Errol Spence who's ducking, that it's not that Errol Spence actually wants to fight Keith Thurman. It's more that he was just using his name. That way, the Terence Crawford fans who kind of like Keith Thurman won't eat Errol Spence alive when it comes to commenting on his post and, being fans of Errol Spence. They're basically not going to ride him for not fighting Terence Crawford, because a lot of those people are still Keith Thurman fans, and they feel like the Keith Thurman fight, for some reason, is just as big of a fight as the Terence Crawford fight. Even though I think every real boxing fan knows by now that Keith Thurman's pretty much over the hill, and that there really isn't a lot of interest, unlike the Gervonta Davis-Ryan Garcia fight. There isn't a lot of interest for that Keith Thurman Errol Spence Jr. fight. Now, I know PBC fans will say, hey, we've been wanting this fight for yada yada amount of years, and once they get it done, then a lot of people are going to tune in. It's going to be one of the fights of the year. I don't believe that. I think that fight is strictly a fight that they put together because it was in-house. They didn't want to face Errol Spence up against Boots or Virgil and risk a loss. Errol Spence is having problems making the weight. And then the car accident situation. It was just so much going on. I think that instead of trying to put Errol Spence through another lengthy negotiation process, they just kind of pulled Keith Thurman's name out of the hat. Like, hey, well, I think fans will buy this fight. They might not buy it by the millions, but this is something we've had in our back pocket for years. So let's go ahead and pull this fight. Recoup some of the money we might have lost, wasting time on Terence Crawford, and just put this fight on. And at the same time, we get to hold on to all those 147 belts without even having to defend them, which is crazy if you think about it. Now, is Errol Spence ducking Terence Crawford? Is the mention of Keith Thurman, because in the article they mentioned that Errol Spence only brought Keith Thurman's name up simply because he didn't want to fight Terence Bud Crawford, that he knows he can't beat Terence Bud Crawford, and Keith Thurman is basically the easier route. I would say that might have some slight truth to it. There might be truth to the fact he's not going to fight Terence Crawford. It might not be true that he can't beat Terence Crawford, but it might be true that sitting around waiting for Terence Crawford is a complete waste of Errol Spence's time. You know, he's tried it in the past 2 or 3 times. You know, he sent him a contract for almost a year straight, and nothing came out of it. So, in a way, you can say, hey, well, Errol Spence is going with Keith Thurman because Terence Crawford is a problem in the negotiating room. Or you can say, well, Errol Spence is going with Keith Thurman because he, in his heart of hearts, doesn't want to deal with Terence Crawford because he can't beat Terence Crawford. Now, some people are going to take that and run with it like, oh, well, if he's not willing to negotiate with Crawford, that means he thinks he can't beat Terence Crawford. I don't think that's the case. I think that he would more than likely beat Terence Crawford if they faced up. The problem is, how long is it actually going to take to make that fight, you know? And if it's another lengthy negotiating process, 1 week, you know, people are led to believe is actually going to happen, and then the next week you find out they're nowhere near making the fight, then I think it's going to piss fans off even more than they already are when it comes to those 2 fighters, and it could start a whole new issue. And I think that Errol Spence is just trying to move on, man, at this point. Now, how is that going to affect the 147 division? And is this Keith Thurman fight actually going to happen? Is that just a ploy? You know, I haven't heard anything from Thurman. I haven't heard anything from Spence for about a month and a half. And this is a fight that everybody was pretty much saying is official, even Errol Spence, and they were all saying it's official, and then the car accident happened, and you really haven't heard a peep out of either one of those guys. And I'm kind of concerned that this. I'm concerned because, I mean, is Errol Spence going to come back to 147, or is he going to make his jump to 154? And if he's going to make that jump, what are the sanctioning bodies waiting for? You know, go get those belts, and let's get Boots and Virgil and Terence Crawford and Stanionis to get it on, because fans want to see some good fights at 147. Now, y'all went and y'all stripped Pacquiao for being inactive, and y'all did it with little regard to the consequences of what you're doing, and then you went and apologized to him and gave him some interim belt. And this was all based off the fact that fans were saying that Pacquiao was holding up the division. And now that it's Errol Spence and Terence Crawford pretty much holding up the division, they don't want to do anything about it. They don't want to say anything. The fans don't want to say anything because most of them are either Spence fans or they're Crawford fans. And now we're all just being held hostage in the 147 division without any information, without any fights. We're just all sitting around waiting for Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. Does the Keith Thurman fight happen? I don't know. I hope it doesn't. I hope he goes straight into the Crawford fight and exits that fight. But in all actuality, I think that fight's more than likely going to happen. I hope it doesn't, but it's more than likely going to happen. It's not going to be fight of the year. That's going to go to Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, more than likely, unless Gervonta ends up fighting Devin Haney at some point in this year. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all that down in the comment section below. Hit that like button for me. Share. Subscribe. Holler at me on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. More than likely to get a response on the tube. So holler at me over there. If you want to collabo, hit my Gmail, flockofcards@gmail.com. We are man ahead.
Louisville, Kentucky, 502. Louisville, Kentucky, 5. Louisville, Kentucky, 502. That's where I'm from, player, how about you? I'm from the city where the hate is familiar. I'm from the city where the haters will kill ya. I'm from the city where they like to gamble. Dice game, get robbed, niggas a scramble. Head for the hills, nigga duck and dive. No bullshit, no shuck and jive. I know a lot of guys got shot and died. A lot of good guys didn't see 25. Recognize it's a blessing being alive. Heading to the park, I'm on the passenger side. Like
Louisville, Kentucky, 502. Louisville, Kentucky, 502. Louisville, Kentucky, 502. Louisville, Kentucky, 552. Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky, 502. Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky, 502.
Louisville, Kentucky, 502.